Coming up on Network Africa. Women all over the world mark International Women's Day. Death toll from Equatorial Guinea blasts rises to 20 plus. Six people killed by militants in the northern region of Burkina Faso. And welcome to the program. I'm Layo Adegoke. We begin today by taking a look at some stories and headlines that made headlines over the weekend.
On Saturday, Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari received the Oxford AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine in Abuja. He's the third African president to receive a shot of the COVAX vaccine given free to African countries. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo was also given the vaccine shortly after the president. They were given the shots publicly to boost confidence in the vaccines and help Nigerians overcome their hesitancy. On Sunday, March 7th, a first batch of 167,000 doses of the AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine against COVID-19 arrived in Ethiopia's capital, Addis Ababa. The shots, also delivered through the COVAX scheme, are part of the 2.2 million AstraZeneca vaccines that Ethiopia is expected to receive in total from the Serum Institute of India. Almost 167,000 cases have been reported from Ethiopia, East Africa's most populous nation, with more than 2,400 lives lost to COVID-19, according to the latest statistics. At least 20 people were killed and 30 others wounded by a suicide car bomb just outside a restaurant near the port in Somalia's capital, Mogadishu, late on Friday. The blast sent plumes of smoke into the sky and triggered gunfire. Local media reported there was also destruction of property and that police had cordoned off the area. No one has claimed responsibility for the blast. Witnesses said the blast occurred outside the Lul Yamani restaurant near the port. While a series of large explosions at a military base rocked the city of Bata in Equatorial Guinea on Sunday, killing 15 people, the cause of the blast is not yet clear. Local television showed groups of people pulling bodies from piles of rubble, some of which were carried away wrapped in bedsheets. Following the explosion, Foreign Minister Simon Oyono-Esono Angwe asked for international help on Sunday. Speaking during a meeting with foreign ambassadors, Mr. Angwe said the situation in the city of Bata caused substantial damage and left 500 people injured. President Theodore Obiang Nguema said the explosions were the result of negligence related to the use of dynamite. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has called for a binding deal by the summer on the operation of a giant Ethiopian hydropower dam. He was speaking on Saturday on his first visit to neighboring Sudan since the 2019 overthrow of Omar al-Bashir. Egypt also signaled support for Sudan in a dispute with Ethiopia over an area on the border between the two countries where there have recently been armed skirmishes. Both Egypt and Sudan lie downstream from the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, which Addis Ababa says is crucial to its economic development.
It's International Women's Day. Happy International Women's Day to our female viewers in and around the world. It's a day set aside to celebrate the efforts of women and girls all around the world in shaping a more equal future, achieving a gender equality goal by 2030, and recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. International Women's Day is a time to reflect on the progress made, to call for change, and to celebrate acts of courage and determination by ordinary women who have played an extraordinary role in the history of their countries and communities. This year, the campaign theme is Women in Leadership, Achieving an Equal Future in a COVID-19 World. Alongside this is a social media campaign encouraging women to #ChooseToChallenge and to call out gender bias and inequality. Well, as the world marks International Women's Day, we would like to celebrate a number of iconic Nigerian women who are making the country and indeed the continent of Africa proud.
Celebrated annually on March the 8th, International Women's Day is a global day celebrating the social, economic, cultural, and political achievements of women. The day also marks a call to action for accelerating gender parity. The campaign theme for International Women's Day 2021 is Choose to Challenge, with people being called on to choose to challenge and call out gender bias and inequality. According to UNICEF, Nigeria's maternal mortality rate remains high, and more girls than boys are out of school, exposing them to different forms of abuse. However, it's not all doom and gloom for Nigeria, as a number of trailblazing women are making the country proud. An example is Nigeria's richest woman, Folorunsho Alakija.
What a man can do, a woman can do. And I don't see any reason why a woman shouldn't be able to do it. You can prove your points, you understand me, by letting them know that, listen, I've done this, I can do the next one.
Another trailblazer is the Director General of the World Trade Organization, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, who resumed office on March the 1st.
Today, WTO members are making history. For the first time in the 73 years of GATT and WTO, you are selecting a woman and an African as Director General. This is groundbreaking and positive.
UN Deputy Secretary General Amina Mohammed is another woman making Nigeria and Africa proud.
When people see me in the United Nations, I remind them that I started my school in Maiduguri. So you can become anything that you wish to be. You just have to work hard, and you have to believe, and you have to do the right thing, and you have to have faith. Whichever faith you have to have faith.
Beautiful, intelligent high flyers like former Vice Presidents of the World Bank, Dr. Obi Ezekwesili and Aruma Ote, also make the list. And corporate Amazon Ibukwa Woshika cannot be left out. Whether in the corporate world, in politics, on the home front, Nigerian women are making a mark because they dare to challenge stereotypes and rise above real and emergent limitations. So the question for all women, and men as well, on International Women's Day is, will you choose to challenge? Doing so brings us a step closer to reaching the 5th Sustainable Development Goal of achieving gender equality and empowerment of all women and girls by the year 2030. Temi Tokwe Fagbemi, reporting for Channels Television News.
Well, in the spirit of International Women's Day 2021, the African First Ladies Peace Mission is advocating the urgent need for governments across the continent to strengthen institutions and introduce measures that recognize the critical role of women in nations building. Speaking at a news conference in Abuja, the president of the mission and special assistant to the president on African First Ladies Peace Mission, Mrs. Myro Al-Makura, notes that the outbreak of COVID-19 is almost reversing the little gains made in establishing the critical role of women in peace and nations building. The mission calls on African leaders to prioritize women and girls' empowerment, insisting that it's impossible for the continent to develop without recognizing the critical role of women.
Although we have seen tremendous progress on women's rights and leadership over the last few years, the pandemic is threatening to reverse the gains that have been made. The pandemic has disproportionately impacted women in many areas, particularly gender-based violence. While the world implemented lockdown measures introduced to curb the pandemic, there has been a spike in reported domestic violence and conflict-related violence against women and girls. To ensure that the COVID-19 response and recovery acknowledges their realities, women need to have a seat at the decision-making table. The African First Ladies Peace Mission celebrates African women who continuously play a crucial role in furthering peace on the continent. We must not lose sight that gender equality and women's rights are fundamental to the continent's progress on peace, security, and human rights. The development of Africa cannot be achieved without women's effort and contribution on the International Women's Day. Let's empower and encourage African women and girls to ensure their participation in all decision-making levels.
Well, joining us on the program now is Stephanie Linus, a filmmaker and a sexual and gender-based violence activist. For more on today's International Women's Day, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, this year's social media campaign is Choose to Challenge. What would you say is the significance of this theme in challenging gender bias?
It's very significant because if you don't choose to challenge, that means you're allowing this whole horrific thing to continue to happen. So you have to challenge the status quo, you have to challenge culture, you have to challenge perception, you have to ask the why, because I mean, we are all created here on this world and we have our free will, we want to flourish. So why would certain rules be set? That why won't you challenge certain rules that are set to sort of like limit you as a human being? So there's every reason for us to really challenge whatever obstacles that we find our way, and we feel that it's not furthering our cause or it's not making us to live a more fulfilled life as a human being, actually.
Well, in challenging this status quo, like you have mentioned, how far would you say Nigeria has gone, on the journey in achieving gender equality and women empowerment?
Well, I think Nigeria has come a long way, and there's a lot of women who are in position of leadership. And I can also say that, based on my industry, women have been leading. So it's not like African women have not been on the forefront doing all kinds of things, but are we there yet where we want to be? No. So that's why we need to challenge the status quo. Are they things that we need to address? Are they even inner issues within ourselves that we need to confront to see that, well, the platform is there for us to actually achieve? And really, I feel women have a lot of power, and I feel women, somehow we need to tap into that power. You're not really... how will I put it? You have a lot of power. Just tap into it. I think we should change the narrative of trying to seem as if we're begging or give us our rights. The right is already there. Get hold of it and take charge. And I think that's what a lot of people are also doing in Nigeria. But in the issue of gender-based violence, we've seen the increase of gender-based violence across the country, especially during this COVID period. And it's actually a thing of concern. And I think it's something that a lot of women need to stand against, even men as well, to stand and say no human being should be battered or butchered for just no reason. And I think it's something that we need to address. Different stakeholders also need to come together to address these issues.
Right, just before I let you go, what is your own message for, younger girls aspiring to achieve their dreams and leading the continent one day?
Well, they should not be afraid. They should not be afraid. They should not see limitation. They should not look at it. They should not even think, oh, I need to go compete with a man. Just if you have the talent for it, just go ahead and do the thing that you're supposed to do. I released a monologue today called Hey Woman, which is like a wake-up call for a lot of people, women, to realize their power, that the power lies within you. You're not asking anybody for permission, but just go out there and do the things that you need to do. The sky is your limit. Do not be afraid. There's been a lot of women. There's been a lot of examples of women who are leading in their fields. You can also look at those women as an example and use that as a yardstick to achieve your dreams as well.
All right, then, Stephanie Linus, filmmaker and sexual and gender-based violence activist, thank you so much for speaking to us on Network Africa.
Thank you.
Well, moving on to other stories, 6 people, including civilians, have been killed in northern Burkina Faso when militants ambushed a soldier and 5 civilian members of Volunteers for the Defense of the Fatherland. The civilian volunteers are part of a network that helps the army in fighting militant groups operating in Burkina Faso. The VDP was formed more than a year ago to bolster efforts by vigilante groups operating in the volatile northern and eastern regions. Still ahead on the program. Still in the mood of International Women's Day, South Africa's first female black helicopter pilot teaches others to bust the glass ceiling. Welcome back to the program. At least 20 people are now known to have been killed and more than 600 others injured in a series of explosions at a military camp in Equatorial Guinea on Sunday. President Teodoro Obiang Nguema has blamed the blasts in the city of Bata on stubble burning by farmers and negligence in the storage of explosives. The blast flattened homes and tore the roofs of buildings. The Health Ministry in the oil-rich Central African country says hospitals have been overwhelmed. The ministry has urged people to donate blood and has also asked off-duty doctors to help with the casualties. Well, COVID-19 stories now. Mozambique will today begin a countrywide vaccination campaign against COVID-19. Authorities say health workers will be the first to be vaccinated because of their high exposure to infection during work. The Ministry of Health says it has distributed over 121,000 vaccine doses to the provinces out of the 200,000 doses that the country received from China last month. Mozambique has so far confirmed 62,520 coronavirus cases with 693 deaths and 46,421 recoveries. The country expects to receive an additional 484,000 vaccine doses. Now, these include over 384 from the COVAX initiative and 100,000 of the Covishield vaccine donated by India. Well, many people are feared dead after a fire broke out at a migrant detention center in Yemen's capital, Sana'a, on Sunday. The International Organization for Migration, IOM, confirmed 8 deaths, but officials at the UN agency say as many as 30 might have been killed. It is not known what caused the blaze at the facility, which was holding hundreds of mostly Ethiopian migrants. But an airstrike by a Saudi-led coalition fighting the rebel Houthi movement damaged buildings nearby. The coalition carried out the strikes on Sana'a as the Houthis launched drones and ballistic missiles at cities and oil installations in Saudi Arabia. Yemen has been devastated by a conflict that escalated back in 2015 when the Iran-aligned Houthis seized control of large parts of the country, and the Saudi-led coalition launched an operation to restore the government's rule. Thousands of Central African Republic refugees are living in makeshift shelters and struggling to care for their families in hard-to-reach areas close to the border in the Democratic Republic of Congo. UNHCR and the UN Refugee Agency is working to relocate these refugees to safer sites where they can better receive humanitarian assistance and protection.
Thousands of Central African Republic refugees at this hard-to-reach camp in the Democratic Republic of Congo are sleeping out in the open in makeshift shelters. They have little or no access to sanitation, drinking water, and food. Authorities in the DRC estimate that there are 92,000 Central African refugees there after election-linked violence erupted in December last year. Some have been welcomed by host families. Reports indicate that up to 3 refugee families are living in a single small home in the remote border areas. Oki Paul is one refugee enduring the dire conditions.
When we arrived, our living conditions were difficult. Finding food was difficult. We couldn't go back there because night and day there was a sound of gunfire. It is not possible to go back there because if you go back there and things happen again and it finds you there, What will you say? We will endure here until God touches someone's heart to help us.
The UN Refugee Agency is trying to establish the number of new arrivals and to identify those with specific needs or vulnerabilities. It's working to relocate refugees to safer sites where they can better receive humanitarian assistance and protection. Nearly a third of the Central African Republic's population, of 4.7 million, have been forced to flee after years of on-off conflict. The gold and diamond-rich country has failed to find stability since the 2013 rebellion. The UN says nearly half of the national territory is occupied by armed groups.
Humanitarian response in Burkina Faso must be scaled up to meet the growing needs in many parts of the country. This is according to Acting Assistant Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs, Ramesh Rajasingham, who adds that credible solutions are necessary to prevent a protracted crisis. During his recent visit to Burkina Faso, he met with several communities affected and displaced by the violence in Djibo and Kaya region. Well, it's still International Women's Day, and South Africa's first female helicopter pilot is teaching others how to bust the glass ceiling. She is Refugee Ledwaba, and she has some words of advice for anyone who fears discrimination will prevent them from achieving their dreams. Instead of focusing on those who seek to bring you down, she says, find some of the many people who would be happy to see you doing what you love and join forces with them.
South Africa's Refugee Ledwaba does not let anything, even gravity, hold her down. Ledwaba is the country's first black female helicopter pilot, a feat she accomplished despite growing up in the apartheid South Africa with 6 siblings and a single mother. It was while training as cabin crew to help pay off her student loan that she found she felt more at home in the cockpit. Her white colleagues encouraged her to become a pilot, and one, a pilot himself, offered to train her for free if she covered the cost of fuel. In 2015, she got a chance to learn to fly helicopters at a government school outside Johannesburg, where she struggled with nerves and the idea a woman must sit with her legs closed, something you cannot do while operating the controls. Once again, it was a white man who encouraged her not to give up. The moment she flew solo, it dawned on her that she had broken the race and gender barriers in one fell swoop. Months later, she became the first black helicopter pilot to join the South African Police Service. But one of Ledwaba's lifelong goals is to pay it forward as many times as possible.
I'm one of the first black female in the country. And, for me, that's not important. And for me, what was important is who is the second, who's the third, who's the fourth, who's the 100th person. Then we start talking. As much as I was celebrated, I had a responsibility to make sure that it doesn't end with me. It goes on. We get to the 10th. And I think for me, that's worth celebrating. I look at some of the young girls that have gone through our programs. When they send me SMSs, they send me WhatsApps. I'm an aeronautical engineer, I'm a mechanical engineer. And then I knew that, I've done my job.
Now a certified flight instructor, she has run her foundation, Girls Fly program in Africa, for over a decade, training hundreds of young women in aerospace and aviation. It now operates in 4 African countries, and Ledwaba has her eyes on others. Now in her early 40s and a few thousand hours of flying under her belt, she says it was with the support of people all through her life that encouraged her to break the boundaries of race and gender and to do something beyond being just a pilot.
Get your boots strapped, ladies. The glass ceiling is shattering. That's it on the program for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Layo Adegoke.